questions when I saw that footage early this morning. You know me, I'm up early. Sometimes I don't even get to bed. And when I saw that in the middle of the night, I've never seen a bridge go down like that. Never in my life. I mean, the way those pillars collapsed, I don't want to sound like Jesse Ventura or anything, but I'm just saying, the way those pillars collapsed, it almost looked like they had a little help down at the base of the pillars.
Well, you know, the thing about a bridge, though, did you ever learn how to build a bridge in school?
Yeah,
Did
like
you
in
ever
high
build one?
school science class.
Yeah, you know, you had to build a bridge, and they taught you how and the way the supports work. But you look at that bridge. That's one of the longest bridges of its type in the world. And if you know, it's just those cross beams, and all the weight really is transferred from across the bridge down onto those pillars. So you take out even one like that, and it's going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to. That's the way it works, because all that pressure comes down onto those pressure points in those sections. And then I was looking at other images overnight of ships as they have to pass underneath that bridge, and there isn't really a lot of space for some of the really big ships. I'm amazed at how they do it, or how they were doing it. But this thing, and I don't know, is there any talk about the power going out on that ship just before it collided?
Well, let's take a look. See? All the lights went out.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's really weird, eh?
It is.
What the heck happened? And now it's just out of control,
and
essentially.
then they came back on.
Yeah.
Now
and what's he doing? He's going to run right into it.
Oopsie.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Oh,
wow. Just incredible.
Yeah.
What news
all that
to wake
weight, and it hits
to.
it right there at the pressure point. I mean,
Then-
you want
then
to take it out.
gets it
That's
again.
that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing there to support the bridge anymore, right? So it comes down.
Yeah, because it's
That's all
like
it takes.
The one in the center, or close to the center, is where he hit. But it makes you wonder, I mean, how do you do that by accident? I mean,
it's like,
how do you not see that coming?
well, the first thing you do is you
You
hire
know?
the old captain from the Exxon Valdez, and you put him behind the wheel, or his buddy,
Right.
or you buy him the same drinks or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, how drunk do you have to be to not see the bridge coming at you? Or you're coming at the bridge. How do you not see that coming? And yeah, why do the lights go out and then come back on and then go off
I
again?
don't know. Strange, isn't it?
A very strange incident. I've been just puzzling over it, really, all day. Because my first thought was, how? How in the world? How does that even happen?
Amazing.
And I've watched this probably, 20 times by now, from different angles and whatnot. Any conspiracy theories in the chat room? I bet there are. I wonder what do our viewers think of it?
SW says,
you
a bridge
guys
hit
have a
my
theory."
battleship. A bridge hit my battleship.
Right.
Yeah, Ragin says he turned right into it.
Sure did.
I don't know what redundancy means. Says the post didn't do shh.
It didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing wrong.
Yeah, and
Just
I'm getting
mind his
echo on
own
my
business.
I'm getting echo on my microphone. Do you notice that?
I don't
Isn't
hear
that
it.
weird?
No.
No, I do, and somebody just commented on it as well. I don't know. Do that. Does that take care of the echo? Not at
Seems a
all.
little better.
I can
There. That's better.
still hear the echo. Weird. I don't know. I'll try and fix it as we go along. Not to worry.
I don't understand this. The mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott, he's asking the media to stop showing footage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, what we just showed you. He literally was on CNN a little while ago saying, I'll be the first to ask that CNN and everyone else stop showing the video. Why should we stop showing the video? It's very newsworthy. It's not like you can see anything graphic in it. Why don't they want us to show it?
I don't know. Weird.
That's the mayor of Baltimore. Very strange.
It is, isn't it? I think it's strange.
About those souls and people that we're trying to
Here, I've got the interview
find
with him
and get
here.
out of this water.
Let me recue that. This is the mayor of Baltimore on CNN.
I want to get us to Mayor Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore, who is with us right now on the phone. Mayor Scott, first of all, I just want to say that I am so sorry that your community is going through this right now and that there are families wondering and worrying about their loved ones at this hour. Can you tell me so far what you know about exactly what happened here to the Francis Scott Key Bridge?
Well, listen, we have an unspeakable tragedy. We know that this vessel struck the bridge and the bridge collapsed. There were individuals working on the bridge at that time. There are cars in the water. Our fire department has confirmed that as they lead this ongoing search and rescue mission through sonar. That is where our focus is. It's about those souls and people that we're trying to find and get out of this water. We know that there's going to be questions about the bridge and traffic and the port. But right now, everyone in this world's focus should be about these souls and those families who are wondering if these people are going to walk back in the door after they walked out to work last night.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The anxiety of all this, and then plus just watching the video of what happened and how quickly the bridge failed. Can you give me some sense of what you thought at first light this morning when you saw the pictures of actually what that bridge looks like with the barge slammed into it there? What were your initial thoughts?
Well, it was something out of an action movie. It's something you never think you would see. And being here right now, looking at it, is even more surreal. And it just makes you think about, again, those families, those individuals that were on that bridge, those folks that even on that vessel, even more, because no one should have to endure. And I'm going to be the first to ask that CNN and everyone else stop showing the video. No one needs to see a possibility of their family member being severely injured
while they're showing the video
over and over and over again, because it's just
Over and over and over.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Okay.
while they're showing the
Okay.
video, and he's on television while they're showing the video, saying don't show the video while they show the video.
That's so absurd, really. And it's dark. It's the middle of the night. You can't see anybody going off the bridge, do you? I didn't see any actual cars flying off the bridge. I didn't see any bodies. I mean, what we saw
it was
on
a wide
9/11
shot,
was
and
far worse.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yet
It's
we've seen that 9/11 stuff a million times.
tragic. It is tragic, but it's a wide shot. Nothing that I would say is disturbing in a graphic sense, other than that something bad has happened.
Right. Man. Well, I notice it's Maverick news time, and I actually have to jump because I've got some other stuff I got to get done. But I was just looking before I go. I'll give you a quick update. And you can just keep the broadcast rolling if you want, Rick, and start Maverick News here at the top of the hour. So I've got 2 minutes, and I'll tell you that the Democrats are having a meltdown, as you might expect, after RFK's VP announcement. Representative Robert Garcia of California. Get this, the DNC hosted a national call during Kennedy's address so that they could have a powwow and figure out what they're going to say and do to come after him. This guy said, "I am personally offended and I am just disgusted by his campaign." That's Robert Garcia, California. Says he should be ashamed of himself. He should stop running for president. Woo, man, those Democrats are mad. They're really mad now. He just took one of their best donors away.
What does he just? I don't understand. Like that, disgusted by what?
Oh, I don't know. He doesn't say what. Probably, the vaccines, and he thinks that Kennedy wants everyone to get measles and die, or get COVID and die. Like, a lot of these people are just Looney Tunes. Like, during that call, the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, Austin Davis, said on the call, he's a spoiler. He was drafted into this race by Donald Trump's top supporters. That's their favorite conspiracy theory, is that Trump is actually funding Bobby, to take votes away from Trump? Why would Trump shoot himself in the foot like that? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's going to hurt Trump more.
So there's also, there's that super PAC for Joe Biden that they're coming after Kennedy too. And they just launched a website called RFK Jr. Facts, FACTS.com. And it's like, there's all these images of Kennedy and Trump kind of merged together. They use AI and kind of make them into one guy, along with, Steve Bannon, Giuliani. If you want to pull up the site and take a look at it, it's rfkjrfacts.com.
Is that JR or JUNIOR?
JR. rfkjrfacts.com. It's like total hit piece website backed by a Biden super PAC called Clear Choice. And basically the ad, they're also doing a TV ad that ties Bobby Kennedy to Trumpism, including, footage of Kennedy saying in the past that he's proud that Trump likes him. Matt Bennett, who's the executive vice president for public affairs of the Democratic Party group Third Way, said in a statement this afternoon, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Nicole Shanahan have only one chance of seeing the inside of the Oval Office if Trump wins and invites them in to say thank you. And on that website, when you land on the main page, it says RFK Jr. is a MAGA-backed candidate who is bankrolled by billionaires to help re-elect Donald Trump. RFK Jr.'s platform is extremely dangerous. He pushes conspiracy theories that divide our country. He's made millions of dollars opposing vaccines and has a history of anti-black, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-Semitic remarks? Wait, what? Wait a minute. I don't understand. Why do they get this whole anti-Semitic thing? Bobby's like the most pro-Israel guy, and he's taken hell for that. He can't win on that. I mean, he's either anti-Semitic or he's so pro-Israel it makes people sick. But you can't be both. What the hell does that even mean? These people are just not well.
Says he's bankrolled by MAGA Republicans.
Well,
Powered and
there is some
bankrolled by
truth
the
to
MAGA
that.
Republicans who see him as a means to an end, electing Donald Trump, or re-electing.
Meanwhile, There is a pro-Trump super PAC, Make America Great Again, Inc. They also put out a statement just a short while ago, and they're attacking him too, of course. Here's what the Trump super PAC says. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a far-left radical that supports reparations. Actually, no, he doesn't. Backs the Green New Deal? No, he doesn't. And wants to ban fracking, which is also inaccurate. He does not. He's reversed on that. It's no surprise he would pick a Biden donor leftist as his running mate. That's from Alex Pfeiffer, spokesman for that pro-Trump super PAC, Make America Great Again. That's a statement they just put out a short time ago. So yeah, he's taking fire from both sides now. Both Biden and the Trump campaigns are coming for him. And her. Miss Shanahan. Boy, I hope she's got a fireproof suit.
I don't think she does. She seems kind of soft to me.
Yeah. She has that mom thing going, you know, like a really sweet mom.
Yeah.
I hate to see her deal with what she's going to have to deal with. So, I just thought you might like that update before I go, and I'll let you get into Maverick News, Rick. I'm going to head on out. It was a pleasure co-hosting with you today. It always is, my friend. Great to see you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon. Stick around for Maverick News because, woo, what a day for news. This wasn't the only news going on. I know you've got updates on the Moscow terror attack, more information on that, on the Baltimore bridge collapse and the aftermath of that. So, yes, do stay with us. Stay with Rick Walker here for Maverick News. And I'm out. I'll see you soon, Rick. Bye now.
Thank you, Lori. See ya. Okay, folks, let's crank this thing up. I'm going to do my best. I haven't had a lot of time to prepare, obviously, for the news broadcast today here on Maverick News, but it's straight ahead. We'll be back on the other side of this.
Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
And I am back. It's a whole new show. Let's dig into the news of the day. As you know, RFK Jr. has now selected his running mate. If you're just joining us here on the Maverick News channel, Nicole Shanahan is his pick. Also tonight, we will take a look at that Baltimore bridge collapse, where we have at least 6 people missing, unaccounted for, after that cargo ship destroyed the Baltimore bridge. We also have the Bank of Canada, an official from the Bank of Canada saying that on the Canadian side, we're facing an economic emergency. And that's all because of inflation, the result of massive money printing. So we have all that and a whole lot more coming right up. So don't go away.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And we're back. So tonight on the news front, again, Nicole Shanahan, chosen as Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate, could be the next vice president of the United States, seen as a long shot by many. He seems to be gaining some ground, getting some momentum, and as you heard Lori say, the Democrats in a bit of a panic mode tonight, worried about RFK Jr. and his new ally in his quest for the White House, tech lawyer Nicole Shanahan. No government experience to speak of. She's a politician now, leaving the Democrat Party, announcing that today during her first speech as his running mate, as he announced in Oakland today, in the middle of the day, and what I would say was a very successful VP running mate announcement. But as I said earlier during the live coverage of that, it was easy today. She gave a very inspirational speech, focused very much on health care, the health of the nation, the state of the food supply, the environment, and the need to clean the environment up. In that respect, very much a progressive agenda and a progressive platform presented today by both RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan, who is a billionaire. She has the resources, the financial resources, to make sure that he gets on the ballot in all 50 states, where the other contenders for RFK Jr.'s running mate for that slot really probably didn't. And ballot access is probably the biggest hurdle that he needed to overcome to really have a fighting chance in this race for power. Presenting himself now as a third alternative, an independent choice in the face of two other choices where people are being forced to make a traditional choice, which is to choose the lesser of two evils, as he puts it. So Shanahan, also chosen because at 38 years of age, she, in his view, and RFK Jr.'s view, will present new appeal to a young demographic and bring younger voters out to the polls. And, more than that, give a new generation of Americans hope and maybe even pride in their nation. On to news now about that Moscow concert hall attack, where conspiracy theories and maybe truthful theories abound. Many people coming out with their own views on this. The Russians pointing their finger at Ukraine still tonight. The United States and Ukraine saying Ukraine had nothing to do with it still tonight. And the United States saying that indeed it was ISIS that is responsible, a faction of ISIS, ISIS-K. So in that regard, things really haven't changed very much tonight. We've seen the suspects appear in court, with some media outlets, a handful anyway, drawing attention to the conditions of those suspects In one case, one of the suspects was appeared to be unconscious when wheeled into the courtroom, and media there allowed to record the event and display all of that worldwide. So I don't think tonight we really have much new to report on with regard to the situation with the Moscow terror attack, but we continue to follow that story, and it is, I think, potentially a pivotal moment in this Third World War that we already are involved in. That combined with the actual conflict in Ukraine, plus what's going on in the Middle East and Gaza, we have a powder keg that we're sitting on here. New or maybe even reinforced alliances formed now in this new multipolar political reality that we are facing globally. New dividing lines being drawn. The United States abstaining from that vote on the UN ceasefire resolution yesterday that was passed because of the U.S. abstention. We're in a very dicey situation. Hamas, I would say, benefiting from this UN resolution yesterday, and yet it is not clear if it will even take hold. With the Palestinian side and Palestinian delegation at the UN yesterday saying that that resolution is binding, when in fact it really is not. They want it to be, and technically, if you read the statutes, the UN statutes, yeah, I guess you could argue that it is, and that the UN is supposed to enforce it, and member countries, UN member countries, are supposed to abide by it. But in the end, will they? It seems unlikely. We'll maybe come back to more about that story later on in the broadcast. And what is the latest on that Baltimore bridge collapse, which we just showed you prior to commencing with this news broadcast and current affairs broadcast? Well, it did go down like a house of cards, didn't it? This container ship has seemed to have the lights go out. I've seen reports suggesting that the power on the ship may have been cut for a moment just before the collision. Jeffrey Pritzker, Executive Vice President of Bronner Builders, confirmed that 6 were presumed dead and 1 survived. They did have workers on that bridge performing maintenance. There were cars on the bridge as well. We just heard in that clip earlier, just moments ago, as well, that the mayor of Baltimore indicated that there did appear to be some cars in the water. 6 people unaccounted for. And the ship was involved in another collision as well earlier. 2 people were rescued from the water. According to Baltimore Fire Chief James Wallace, 1 was in good condition and refused treatment, according to fire officials. The other was seriously injured and was treated in trauma center. But officials say there might have been drivers in the water. Were not for the folks. I'm just looking at these notes here. For the folks who, upon hearing Mayday, blocked off the bridge and kept other cars from crossing. As you saw in the video, that ship, the Dolly, which is operated and managed by a company called Synergy Group, collided with one of the main support pillars, and it just collapsed that whole section of the bridge. The bridge is about 1.5 miles long, carries Interstate 695 over the Patapsco River southeast of Baltimore. Officials say it was fully up to code. Now, you run a ship into one of those support pillars and you have a problem. So it's going to take time to continue to assess the damage. We'll continue to get updates on this. The Port of Baltimore is the 11th largest in the U.S. and the busiest port for car imports and exports. I guess it handles more than 750,000 vehicles in each year on average. That data comes from the Maryland Port Administration. The Dolly was being charted by Danish shipping giant Maersk. And a lot of theories surrounding that story as well out there tonight. And in Canada, as I alluded to earlier, there was a speech given today by a Bank of Canada official who says that the Canadian economy, and our American viewers should take note of this, the Canadian economy is facing something of an emergency. This because of inflation. Here in Canada, as I said earlier, I think we're facing inflation in real terms. If you go to the supermarket, as I do, real inflation of at least 15 to 20% per year. It's been like that since the pandemic broke and we went into lockdown and the government began handing out tons and tons of money as relief to people here. Situation very similar on the U.S. side, maybe not quite as bad. Here's one of the mainstream media stories referencing this tonight. In an emergency break glass signs, Bank of Canada officials says it's time to break the glass. Speaking in Halifax, this was Carolyn Rogers from the Bank of Canada. She says Canadian labor productivity eked out a small gain at the end of last year, but that came after 6 straight quarters where productivity fell. That's also the result of money printing and handing out free money to people because there was less incentive, obviously, to work. And in some cases, people were prevented from working because they were locked down. So, of course, you're going to get less productivity. The Canadian economy, we're told, bounced back. It has been bouncing back. We're supposed to be seeing growth, but that really, obviously, from what we're hearing now from the Bank of Canada official, that's not really true. So I would say the Trudeau government or regime is cooking the numbers on the economic side. So Rogers noted that the U.S. has seen productivity gains coming out of the pandemic as firms found their footing, but Canada has not seen the same. Now, I can tell you, too, that on the U.S. side, from all the data that I've seen in recent months, the productivity gains on the U.S. side are coming largely from the military-industrial complex, and that is because of all the arms that are being produced and being shipped overseas. That's where the money, the wealth, is being generated. Those numbers are propping up the statistics, not necessarily flowing into more economic prosperity for the average American, however. And also a lot of the jobs that are being created on the U.S. side are part-time or low-paying jobs. And as a result, even though you're seeing job growth, a lot of people are working. It's the additional jobs. They're working more than one job. In some cases, 2 and even 3 jobs in order to maintain the standard of living that they had before. So this is a real warning sign coming from the Canadian government. Rogers says here, this Bank of Canada official, he says, in fact, the level of productivity in Canada's business sector is more or less unchanged from where it was 7 years ago. That means no productivity growth in 7 years. And yet we've had substantial inflation during that period of time. Over the past 4 years, in real terms, because of inflation, you've seen the value of the dollar debased by as much as 40 to 60% over just the past 3 years alone. And that means that when we're going to the grocery store here, compared to where we were just a few years ago, we're paying more than double for a lot of basic staples at the grocery store. Fish that used to cost, say, $9, now costing $15, $16. Like a package of frozen fish. That's something that, just comes to mind. Breakfast cereal. You're paying, in some cases, almost double for a box of cereal here, where compared to, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Substantial price increases across the board. People having a very hard time making ends meet. And even though on the Canadian side here, we've seen government increase the minimum wage, all that really ended up doing in the end was offsetting a bit of the inflation that we have seen. So the minimum wage increase really has not resulted in a higher standard of living for people at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. So she goes on here today in this speech, and she said, we know that changing demographics and the economic impacts of climate change will tend to put upward pressure on prices. Persistent global trade tensions also raise the risk of future inflation. Rogers said that when you compare Canada's recent productivity record with that of other countries, what sticks out is how much the country lags on investment in machinery, equipment, and intellectual property. She also said Canada needs to focus on making sure the training and education we provide teach the skills we need, while a more competitive business environment would help drive greater innovation and efficiency. And productivity really does mean not just producing more stuff, but producing it efficiently. That's what's needed. That's also what RFK Jr.'s new running mate was focused on in her speech today as well. Artificial intelligence. It's a key to a brighter future. It has to be. It could be the silver bullet, ultimately, that saves us from this declining economy, this inflationary environment that we are in. Artificial intelligence represents a potential path to exponential gains in productivity through the combination of AI with robotics, automation. We can produce a lot more stuff, increase the standard of living, potentially for people, at an exponential rate using new technology and grow our way out of the debt. At least that's the theory. And I have been listening to a number of economists talk about just that. But you need a leader or leadership in place that can take you down the right path with that. And that means not looking in the rearview mirror. It means harnessing the power of AI while at the same time finding the right balance so that it doesn't end up being so disruptive that it destroys society in any number of ways which we can't possibly foresee at this point. That's the danger and the promise. And with all of that going on, we also mentioned earlier this week that the RCMP in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the National Police Force, had a secret study done, which we laid out for you in more detail here. I had that about a week and a half ago. Other media just picking it up for the first time, even just yesterday. And then I showed you the secret report, which was obtained using Freedom of Information Act requests. I showed you the document, and it shows that because of the economic stress that we are under here, because of political destabilization that has resulted since the pandemic, the government sees a real existential threat to the country coming from what they say are, increasingly more extreme political movements and dissatisfaction with voters. The country is fracturing. And they see that it's going to be a very rocky road over the next 5, 7, maybe even 10 years. And that's because of mostly the declining economy, declining standard of living, disruptive technologies like AI. Now, the other thing that I became aware of, I've been aware of it anyway, honestly, but right now, big auto show in China. And here, I'll show you. I don't think this is behind a paywall. Yeah, here we go. Associated Press. So, right now, Chinese electric vehicle makers are challenging market leaders at an auto show in Bangkok. It's on right now, this auto show, one of the biggest auto shows in the world. This is something we really need to be paying attention to here, folks. I'll show you this MSM report from Associated Press on this story. Chinese EV makers challenging market leaders at auto show in Bangkok. BYD, Chinese automaker, they're going head to head with companies like Toyota, Honda, Ford, General Motors, and they're winning. They even have a flying car that they have on display at this auto show in China. It says here, Chinese electric vehicle makers are showcasing their latest models, including a flying car. There it is, as they take on global rivals at the Bangkok International Motor Show. BYD, Xpeng, and Great Wall Motors quickly growing their sales in Thailand, challenging long-standing market leaders like Toyota, Isuzu, and Ford as they expand exports across the globe. Now, why is this important? Well, important not so much just because of what's going on there in Thailand. It's important because of all the money our governments are dumping into the electrification of the auto industry here in North America. Unprecedented levels of government investment and corporate investment in the auto industry. The electrification of the industry is not happening simply because of market forces, market demand, consumer demand for the products. It's happening because of the governments here in the West basically mandating it. Through legislation, through new regulations, they are going to be forcing people to purchase electric vehicles. And forcing the companies, they're already forcing the companies to retool and start manufacturing them. Now, the Biden administration last week did back off to some degree as they finalized new rules for emissions, which will have a direct impact on this process of electrification. But they did it because auto dealers were sending a message collectively to the White House in a letter, which I've shown you here on the program, saying you have to tap the brakes on this because these electric cars simply aren't selling. The dealers are buying up the inventory. That's the way it works. They buy the inventory. They hold the inventory on their lots. They have to hold that as debt. And then they have to sell the product, but it's theirs once they purchase it. And they aren't selling the way that they need to make the industry, the electric vehicle industry, sustainable. So the Biden administration did, and the EPA, they did change some of their rules, adjusted what their goals were going to be, giving the automakers a little bit more time to keep some internal combustion engines in their vehicle lineups and giving them more leeway to produce more hybrids instead of pure electrics as we move toward a future not very far away, say in 2030 or 2035, depending on the country, where all the vehicles will be, new vehicles sold will only be electric. But they're giving the automakers a little bit more time. Now, that being said, with companies like this in China taking a bigger and bigger piece of the pie and displaying their products in a way that shows consumers are becoming more accepting of them and embracing them because of lower price points largely, what I'm saying is you're getting all this increased competition from China, which is not not a big surprise. We've seen this coming. Donald Trump on the opposite side of this equation, talking about just that. Saying that electric vehicles, for the most part, he says, are going to be produced in China. And if you look at the number of factories and the number of actual battery packs that are being produced, who has the most capacity to produce electric vehicle batteries? It's in China. Who controls the world market, the bulk of the world market for cobalt and lithium and the other raw materials that go into the manufacture of car batteries? China. China has positioned themselves exactly for this new reality, for an electric future, for electric vehicles. So the concern here, of course, is will all these factories which are being retooled here on the North American side, will they be competitive? Will they ever pay back on the investment that our politicians are making with our tax dollars, our borrowed tax dollars? If they're wrong, we're in a lot of trouble, because that money needs to come back, and it has to come back in a timely fashion, because it's like any investment. If they're wrong, it means that you're going to be driving a Chinese car and while the economy collapses. It's that serious. It truly is. All this happening while we're seeing now the Bank of Canada sounding the alarm on the economy here on the Canadian side, and as Lori and I were just discussing prior to the starting this particular portion of the broadcast, it's not really good on the U.S. side either. Maybe even worse in terms of the amount of debt each individual American actually owes. Probably never be able to pay all that money back, and when the rest of the world finally figures that out, look out. And in fact, I think that's kind of what's going on a global scale, which is why the world is so unstable right now. So maybe some people just see a car, but I see a whole lot more. I see an economy and a very uncertain future.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
But don't worry, folks, because Joe Biden is still firmly in control at the White House, and he's on it, man, because commenting, I guess, today on this bridge collapse in Baltimore, he had this to say. And yeah, I feel much safer knowing this guy is in charge.
At about 1:30, container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware there in a trainer by car. At about 1:30, a container ship struck the Francis
Did you hear that?
Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware on a train or by car.
So I guess he was taking the train over the bridge. Okay. Right. Well, on the other side, Donald Trump, the judge overseeing his criminal case, has imposed a gag order restricting what Trump can say about anyone involved in the upcoming trial. Of course, that revolves around that hush money payment that that was made to Stormy Daniels, the adult film star. So Judge Juan Merchan issued the order, which limits Trump's public statements. And the circus in court continues. Again, yesterday I said he has so many lawsuits, so much stuff going on in court. The cases just seem to bleed together at this point. So the judge said that, he listed a series of statements that Trump made related to multiple cases and making this request, I guess, from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And the judge said that the examples went far beyond defending himself against attacks by public figures. He described Trump's statements as threatening, inflammatory, denigrating, with the targets of his statements either assigned to the cases or performing their civic duty, he said. So basically, because of what he said before and because of the nature of these comments that he's made before, he's put a gag order on Donald Trump. So the order bars Trump from commenting or causing others to comment on potential witnesses in the case, prospective jurors, court staff, lawyers in the district attorney's office, and the relatives of any counsel or court staffer. He is allowed to criticize Bragg himself as well as Merchan. Now, this case is supposed to go to trial next month, April the 15th. But that's just one of the trials that Trump has to deal with. On the Canadian side, the carbon tax, that's the big issue right now. There's going to be a committee looking at the Trudeau government's carbon tax increase, which is due to take effect April 1st. For Conservative premiers, those are the provincial equivalents of a prime minister, but at the provincial level, sort of like a governor for the United States. So 4 Conservative premiers will be telling a House of Commons committee later this week that Justin Trudeau should ditch the planned increase, this federal carbon tax increase. April 1st is next Monday. So you have Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, Blaine Higgs, Tim Houston, Danielle Smith of Alberta, which is Canada's oil-producing province. They've all written letters to the chair of the House of Commons Finance Committee. They want a chance to testify at this committee hearing about the impact of the upcoming carbon tax increase, to tell them what kind of impact it will have on their provinces, on the people who live there, on the local economies, the regional economies. And all this happening while I guess there's supposed to be some fairly large protests set to begin on April 1st, and more protests involving, in some cases, truckers and people from the freedom movement, Canada-wide, at various dates all through the month of April. These protests are supposed to continue until the government backs down on this carbon price increase. How effective they will be, who the heck knows? I guess it depends on the turnout. We'll have more on that in the days ahead as well. Justin Trudeau standing firm on his plan to increase that carbon tax. And take note again, my American friends, because what happens up here with regard to that is very likely to take hold down on your side of the border as well, because the Biden administration is pretty much in lockstep with the Trudeau regime up here in Canada when it comes to this particular portfolio. The carbon tax increase over the life of it, I believe we're looking at a 23% increase in the carbon tax itself. The initial increase that we're going to see on April the 1st will translate into an average across the country of about 3 cents per liter higher price at the pump for gasoline, but there will also be increases in the price of home heating, oil, natural gas, all forms of energy, really. And that will, of course, filter down into more inflation, more price increases on everything, because the fuel that is used to produce and transport all goods to market will increase in price. And that's just one of the inputs into everything that we purchase, everything we consume. That is the key issue right now that is being used by Trudeau's main political opponent, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, who has a whole Axe the Tax campaign that he's rolling out. He tried to force an election in the House of Commons on that very issue with a vote of what they call a vote of non-confidence. It failed, but did highlight the issue again, and Poilievre has a bunch of rallies planned for his Axe the Tax campaign across the country. Now, there was a big one that was supposed to happen 4 days from now in Windsor, Ontario, but for logistical reasons, I did receive word on that this morning that the Axe the Tax campaign rally in Windsor, Ontario, auto production company or municipality, community, at one point, Canada's automotive capital, the Axe the Tax campaign down there, the rally for the 30th of this month, canceled now for logistical reasons. Apparently, it will be rescheduled. Not really clear, though, why the rally was canceled. Gonna have to dig into that just a little bit more, and then maybe I think there's maybe something more to it than just a logistical issue. But I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. What else do we have for you tonight? Bringing up my other notes here. We already showed you the footage from, I believe it was yesterday. Sean Diddy had his properties raided amid sex trafficking allegations. Oh, and here's restaurants in Canada are facing a frugal market as sales dip. Again, another report from the restaurant industry on the economic side showing that inflation is just eating people alive, which means people who want to eat out can't eat out because the inflation is eating up the value of their money. New data from Statistics Canada, just released, showed that prices for food purchases from restaurants increased 5.1% year over year in January, continuing a trend seen last year. Now, that's just one economic indicator, the price of food at a restaurant, up 5.1%. That alone eats up any gains that anyone made by getting a minimum wage increase. So if you had a minimum wage job at a restaurant, for instance, that price increase alone right there eats up any gain that you made on the wage increase, because the government mandated higher wages for people working at the lowest end of the economic scale. In addition to that, it's not just that prices went up for people, it's that restaurants saw sales decline anywhere from 5, 6, 7, in some cases maybe even 10%, depending on certain areas of the country. Every restaurant experiencing something different, but because prices have gone up, people are eating out less. Again, just another warning sign, not just here in Canada, but I would say it should be a warning sign for other countries as well. Julian Assange he was told that he can appeal the U.S. extradition order, that ruling coming down today. He can continue his fight against extradition to the United States, with this high court in London making this ruling earlier today. They're saying that he should be allowed to appeal against it unless the U.S. promises he will not face the death penalty. The United States prosecutors working for the U.S. want to put Assange on trial on 18 counts under the Espionage Act over the release of confidential U.S. military records and diplomatic cables. So this will drag on, is the bottom line. But it is actually, I think, in a way, for Assange, a positive development. And I know that the world truly is watching that case. Not a lot more to report on that tonight, I don't think, because it's just it just gets us to a point where it's more delays, ultimately, is what we're dealing with there. And we'll see if he ever does make it, if they are ever actually successful in bringing him to the United States. Okay, hang on, I'll be right back and we'll continue.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Now, we always do want to be fair and balanced here at Maverick News, so tonight what I will do, since I did run that very brief clip of Joe Biden saying that he sometimes took the train across the bridge in Baltimore, which seems probably unlikely given that I don't think there are train tracks on that bridge. Maybe a car, but I don't think a train. Nevertheless, we're going to take you to the White House so that we can let Joe Biden deliver his full remarks on the bridge collapse. Here we go.
And I was waiting to talk to the last member of the delegation of the region. Good afternoon. Before I leave for North Carolina, which I'm going to do in a few minutes, I want to speak briefly about the terrible incident and accident that happened in Baltimore this morning. At about 1:30, a container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware, either on train or by car. Been in Baltimore Harbor many times. And the bridge collapsed, sending several people in vehicles into the water, into the river. And multiple U.S. Coast Guard units, which are stationed very nearby, thank God, were immediately deployed along with local emergency personnel. And the Coast Guard is leading the response to the port, where representatives from the Federal Highway Administration, the FBI, the Department of Transportation, the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as Maryland officials and Baltimore Police and Fire, are all working together to coordinate an emergency response. Officials at the scene estimate 8 people were unaccounted for still, not still, were unaccounted for. That number might change. 2 have been rescued, 1 without injury, 1 in critical condition. And the search and rescue operation is continuing for all those remaining as we speak. I spoke with Governor Moore this morning, as well as the Mayor of Baltimore, the County Executive, both United States Senators and the Congressman. And my Secretary of Transportation is on the scene. I told them we're going to send all the federal resources they need as we respond to this emergency. I mean all the federal resources. And we're going to rebuild that port together. Everything so far indicates that this was a terrible accident. At this time, we have no other indication, no other reason to believe there's any intentional act here. Personnel on board the ship were able to alert the Maryland Department of Transportation that they had lost control of their vessel, as you all know and reported. As a result, local authorities were able to close the bridge to traffic before the bridge was struck, which undoubtedly saved lives. And our prayers are with everyone involved in this terrible accident and all the families, especially those waiting for the news of their loved one right now. I know every minute in that circumstance feels like a lifetime. You just don't know. It's just terrible. We're incredibly grateful for the brave rescuers who immediately rushed to the scene, and to the people of Baltimore who want to say, we're with you. We're going to stay with you as long as it takes. And like the governor said, you're Maryland tough, you're Baltimore strong, and we're going to get through this together. And I promise we're not leaving. Here's what's happening now. The search and rescue operation is our top priority. Ship traffic in the Port of Baltimore has been suspended until further notice, and we'll need to clear that channel before the ship traffic can resume. The Army Corps of Engineers is on the spot and is going to help lead this effort to clear the channel. The Port of Baltimore is one of the nation's largest shipping hubs, and I've been there a number of times as a senator and as a vice president. It handles a record amount of cargo last year. It's also the top port in America for both imports and exports of automobiles and light trucks. Around 850,000 vehicles go through that port every single year, and we're going to get it up and running again as soon as possible. 15,000 jobs depend on that port, and we're going to do everything we can to protect those jobs and help those workers. The bridge is also critical for travel, not just for Baltimore, but for the Northeast Corridor. Over 30,000 vehicles cross the Francis Scott Key Bridge on a daily basis. It's virtually it's one of the most important elements for the economy in the Northeast and the quality of life. My transportation secretary is there now. As I told Governor Moore, I've directed my team to move heaven and earth to reopen the port and rebuild the bridge as soon as humanly possible. And we're going to work hand in hand with the support of Maryland to support Maryland whatever they ask for. We're going to work with our partners in Congress to make sure the state gets the support it needs. It's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge, and I expect the Congress to support my effort. This is going to take some time. The people of Baltimore can count on us, though, to stick with them at every step of the way until the port is reopened and the bridge is rebuilt. You know, we're not leaving until this job gets done. Not leaving until then. So I just want to say God bless everybody who got everyone harmed this morning and their families. And may God bless the first responders, who many of whom risked their lives. And the reason I'm not going to take a lot of questions, there's remaining issues that are open that we got to determine what's going to happen in terms of the rescue mission and the like. But
Do you plan to go to Baltimore, sir? And if so, how quickly?
I do, and as quickly as I can. That's what
You said the federal government's also going to pay for the repairs. I'm just curious, this was a ship that appears to be at fault. Is there any reason to believe that the company behind the ship should be held responsible? And then also, you
that
mentioned
could be, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to pay for it to get the bridge rebuilt and opened.
What did you make of Israel's decision not to attend this meeting this week?
so I don't want to get into that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Ross.
You mentioned the port. Can I ask about cars? About the port.
And that's the end of that. So, we also have today Donald Trump, his media company, the parent of Truth Social, began trading on the NASDAQ today. So, some are saying that Trump's business association with Truth Social could end up making him a trillionaire. I'm also seeing op-eds from people who I think are very credible say that the truth of the matter is, if you want to talk about Truth Social, they're saying that it will, in real terms, be nowhere near that because the company itself lost money last year, and we're talking about millions, not billions of dollars. So I don't really know where the truth is on Truth Social, other than to say that, yes, it is now trading on the stock market. Trump's business relationship with the company has shifted, it has changed, but his shares and the way that the business is set up, it could make him a lot of money. He owns 58% of the shares in the company, placing his stake at, again, based on early trading, some are saying $5 billion is what it's worth. And he's saying that Truth Social is doing very well. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not doing very well, even though it may have lost money last year, because it's still a young, emerging company. And in that industry, the social media companies are very competitive. You're up against Google, Facebook, Twitter, X. So I don't know, but we've also seen, in the past that even social media companies can take it on the chin. Here's Trump talking about coming up with the cash for that bond that he owes, which I think it was yesterday, it was cut from 400 and some million to, I think, 175. So he did score a win in, actually, I don't have that clip, so it's okay. But I do have this clip of Trump talking about immigration tonight. This is what it was that I had here for you. Let me just bring this up. But with that trading on the stock exchange now, Trump's in a totally different position. I wondered when he was banned on Facebook after the last election how he could possibly end up campaigning if he didn't have proper access to social media. But he's been able to work around it, and one of the ways he's worked around it is with Truth Social, by creating his own platform. It's not nearly as widely used as Facebook at this point, but it is growing. There's no doubt about that. I'm on Truth Social, along with a number of other platforms, including CloudHub, MeWe. So there are alternatives out there. They're not as popular as Facebook, in that I say that Facebook is actually in decline because they're banning so many people, censoring so many people. And in Canada, you can't even get news on Facebook anymore because of Trudeau's censorship laws, where he tried to make Facebook and the other social media companies cough up money to pay the mainstream legacy media for the content they put on social media. So now, as a result, you are not allowed to distribute news content on Facebook. Facebook says they don't want it. So now we can't even get news on Facebook. As a result, I was using it a whole lot less, and now I'm banned for life on Facebook. Maverick News, proudly banned on Facebook. Yes, indeed, folks, I think we are Canada's most banned news network. Perhaps second only to InfoWars. Let's listen to what Donald Trump has to say. This just posted within the last hour.
All over the world they came. Angola. Millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully. Egypt. Cameroon. Well, they're coming by the thousands. Nobody could afford this, and even morally it's so wrong. Venezuela. You're not smart enough to know who I am, but soon you're gonna know who I am. We will secure our borders and we will restore our sovereignty.
They recognize the fact that Joe Biden is more favorable president for immigrants. Trump or Biden?
Biden, of course.
Are you afraid? After watching that, I am. I'm not sure what to be afraid of, but it just left me with a feeling of fear. That's the tone. That's a lot different than what we saw with RFK Jr. earlier today. The whole Trump campaign, the whole MAGA movement, right now, I'd say it just overall has that dark, negative feeling to it. Maybe it'll shift. Maybe they'll find other inspirational messages, but really, very scary stuff. People seem to be focused very much on the fear porn. I don't really understand human nature when it comes to that. We've seen that even with the coverage of Princess Kate in the past week. Disappeared, dropped out of sight, laying low. The princess, dealing with a personal matter, and it just led to all kinds of speculation, even from mainstream media, with people coming up with all kinds of theories, from she was being involved in some sort of a fling to she was dead. Of course, in the end, what we found out is she has cancer. She's been struggling with that. She did make a public statement. Now some people feel bad about accusing her of things or saying things that just simply weren't true, as people not only watched the fear porn, but of course, especially mainstream media and independents out there as well, jumped on the bandwagon and started speculating, theorizing about where the princess might be. What's going on? And in the end, she's been dealing with a very personal medical issue. And even now, we don't know exactly what kind of cancer she is battling. But it just shows human nature. And indeed, it is. We are in dark times, and I don't know why people seem to gravitate toward the fear porn. I think it gives people some sort of a rush. I really do. And we have Sergei Lavrov from Russia, saying that, well, I'll just let him speak for himself, talking about that Moscow terror attack, the Russians investigating on their end. Let's hear what he has to say. Hopefully we have a good translation on this. Or maybe no translation at all. Indeed. Let me just find out what it is he's actually saying here for you folks. So I'll just go in here and get the notations on this. He says, I do not remember that Interpol volunteered to help us investigate the terrorist attack on the Nord Streams, although we appealed to the UN Security Council. Therefore, we will not need such assistance with the manifestation of double standards and with the promotion of a theory convenient for the West. And so again, yes, I mean, Russia taking the position that Ukraine was directly involved, but they want to know who was behind it, who planned it, vowing to hold everyone who was involved accountable. Let me get, I think I've got the response, the Hamas response to the ceasefire resolution. I had it queued up here. I'll tell you what, let me just take a quick break and then I'll come back on the other side with that for you, because I think it is definitely worth reading if you want a full perspective on this story. Don't go away.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I do have that statement from Hamas on the UN Security Council ceasefire resolution. It reads as follows. Just make sure you have it up on the screen so you can see it. There it is. The Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, welcomes the UN Security Council's call for an immediate ceasefire, and we stress the necessity of reaching a permanent ceasefire that leads to the withdrawal of all Zionist forces from the Gaza Strip and the return of the displaced to the homes from which they left. We also affirm our readiness to engage in an immediate prisoner exchange process that leads to the release of prisoners on both sides. In the context of the text of the resolution, we emphasize the importance of the freedom of movement of Palestinian citizens and the access of all humanitarian needs to all residents in all areas of the Gaza Strip, including heavy equipment to remove rubble so that we can bury our martyrs who have remained under the rubble for months. Hamas calls on the Security Council to pressure the occupation to adhere to the ceasefire and stop the war of genocide and ethnic cleansing against our people. Hamas affirms the right of our Palestinian people to establish their independent, sovereign Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital, and the right of return and self-determination in accordance with international resolutions and international law. The Hamas movement appreciates the efforts of the brothers in Algeria and all the countries in the Security Council that supported and support our people and are working to stop the Zionist aggression and war of annihilation. So you can interpret that or analyze it and come up with your own views and interpretations on that. What I'm seeing there is, while they say that they want a ceasefire, they are still standing firm on their plans, their desires, what they want. So they're going to continue to push for what they want. The conflict is not over. Even if we get a ceasefire, I don't know that it will be something that will hold or will be lasting. And then, is it binding, not binding? The delegation, as I said yesterday, from Palestine at the UN indicated that they believe the resolution is binding. But is that really the case? Well, I'm hearing most others say that no, it's not the case. See if I've got that clip handy for you here. And I have to go over, sorry, to this other tab. Yeah, I do have it here for you. So here's the delegation saying that the ceasefire has to happen immediately, and that not only does it, they're saying that so they want the ceasefire to happen immediately, and even though there's supposed to be an attachment of a condition for the release of the hostages, they're saying that that's secondary. I don't think this is going to fly, honestly, with Israel, but it depends on how much pressure they get from the White House, too, on the Israeli side. Here's what we have.
Process calls for unconditional, immediate release of hostages. Now, there are many people in the Middle East say, what guarantees are, once the hostages, all hostages are released, what guarantees do we have that Israel will not go the whole way to Rafah, more destructions? What stops Israel from doing that?
I understand the frustration of our people, and they have the right to be frustrated from the international community that dragged its feet for 5.5 months before they agreed to a ceasefire. But the language of the resolution is crystal clear. Operative paragraph 1 starts from demanding an immediate ceasefire. The second part of the sentence, it is not conditional upon the first part. It says, and also it calls for the other part. The other part was in place.
Okay. So it just shows that even though you have this ceasefire, which is a resolution passed by the UN, both Israel and the Palestinians, they're still entrenched in their position. Israel now not going to send people for this big meeting that was supposed to take place in Washington. I don't know how much that's going to affect things, but it's turning into a bit of a standoff. And then how does this play out over the next few weeks? I don't know, but it's volatile for sure. And this is the stuff, honestly, folks, that could lead to a fully kinetic Third World War. It's that destabilizing. You have this terrorist attack in Moscow. You have the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. You have funding tied up, being delayed, additional funding from the U.S., which is tied to the border issue in the United States because of Trump and his influence. So it's actually Trump and the MAGA Republicans that are standing in the way of the funding and the additional arms going to Ukraine. The Ukrainians are on their back heel, apparently, because of lack of ammunition. Very dangerous over there. It seems like they're pivoting maybe more toward guerrilla warfare style tactics because they don't have the firepower to just go toe-to-toe with the Russian forces now, so they're shifting their strategy. Well, they've been losing some ground, and yet at the same time, there are indications that the Ukrainians may be more entrenched and more resilient than some of the online pundits would have us believe. As much as we're being told at every turn that this thing is going to be over in a matter of weeks or maybe a month or two, every time we hear a prediction like that from any of the experts out there, it just continues. And it's turned into not just months, but years now. And both sides seem to be entrenched and still determined. Zelensky and his forces seem to have a little bit more depth than some of the experts would suggest. And even though we've seen reports out of Russia that this most recent attack on the Black Sea Fleet was minimal, I'm now seeing a lot of evidence to suggest that, in fact, there was more damage done in this last attack than the reports would have suggested. With some suggesting that, the entire Black Sea Fleet is only marginally or a large percentage of it is now not operational. So the Russians are suffering some setbacks on that front. I don't think there's any question about it. And yet every time we see any kind of actual damage inflicted, we get all these conflicting reports out of there. It's very difficult to know what is real, what to believe, because there's so much propaganda and mixed in with the truth. The reality is they have suffered some losses, and it is affecting their operational ability, and that's why the war continues to drag on. No question that the Ukrainians have lost territory, lost ground, especially lately, and that they are in a desperate situation when it comes to ammunition. That's why these delays on the U.S. side are so significant, and maybe why anything that the Russians might do, time seems to be a critical factor here. I would say that if the situation in Ukraine is as the Russians describe it, which is that the Ukrainians are basically done, then I would anticipate a major move by Russia very, very soon in order to finish things off before more aid, more weapons are able to flow in there. But so far, haven't quite seen that, so I'm not really sure what to make of it. A lot of the analysis that we've been seeing, I'm taking it all with a grain of salt. I don't think it's over. Not yet, anyway. I don't know if it's going to drag on for another week, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. But it's not over. The U.S. sent some supplemental funding to kind of bridge the gap just in the last couple of weeks. Not sure what that means in terms of actual weapons and ammunition on the battlefield. But it's very clear that this is not over. maybe Ukraine's in trouble, but they haven't quite given up yet. There's still some ground to cover here, and that means, unfortunately, more conflict, more death, more lost lives, more blood and treasure wasted on both sides. We've also seen, and I have studied this as well, in the last few months, munitions factories in the United States have ramped up production. They started doing that some months ago. And so I think there's maybe more in terms of resources and military aid flowing to Ukraine than we are actually being told. In fact, for all I know, all this talk about them running out of ammunition might just be completely inaccurate. There's almost no way to know for sure. It could be like a double fake out. I don't think that that's really the case. I think they do have some issues with munitions, ammo, weapons on the battlefield. They do need the additional aid or they will crumble, I think. But it is clear that they have not given up. And that stuff going on with the Black Sea Fleet, that seems to be a weak point for the Russians. Because the Ukrainians seem to be able to get in there and score some points and inflict some damage. So they keep focusing on that and coming back to it, and that has had some impact there, for sure. So there's all that. And all that being said, we've been on here now since 1:30 this afternoon Eastern Time. We're now coming up on almost 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, because we have so many new viewers here tonight, I am going to run one of our Maverick Nights animated featurettes, just for fun, when we come back on the other side of this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And we're back, and if you like what you are seeing here tonight, if you want to support the channel, you can do that by donating online at maverickdonations.com. Let me get that up on a banner here for you. Maverickdonations.com. That takes you to the Give, Send, Go account. You can also donate where most people donate at freedomreporters.com. Also, if you would consider liking, sharing, subscribing, that would help us out a great deal as well. Make sure you take a look at what we're doing over on our not just our YouTube channels, but also on our Rumble channels. That's the most important platform for us. That's where we continue to grow Maverick News over on Rumble. And if you do subscribe to the YouTube channels, make sure you hit the the notification bell. Otherwise, it doesn't send you the notification when we produce new videos. And anybody that sends us a donation of $30 or more, I would be happy to send you a Maverick News t-shirt. No charge. Just make sure you send along in the notation what size you would like. You can have it in any color you like, as long as it's black. Any donation of $60 or more, and I can send you one of these. A Maverick News shirt with the logo embroidered right on it. Very nice. And or I can send you a hoodie Just, again, indicate the size, tell me what you want, a hoodie or a shirt, and I'd be happy to send that to you. freedomreporters.com is where to do it. Now, if you are new to the channel, we do have this ongoing graphic video series that we've been producing, and I think it's kind of fun, and would be great to have a lot of new people join the Maverick family, our community, our community of misfits here on the Maverick News Channel. So, with that being said, we do have this series. It's called Maverick Nights, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but entertaining. Here's chapter 1 of Maverick Nights. Share it with you for all of our new viewers to get you started.
The Rise of Maverick Man, Uncovering Klaus Schwab's Diabolical Plot. Subtitle: Journalist Richard Paul exposes a global villain's evil plan to destabilize the world economy. Introduction. In a shocking turn of events, renowned journalist Richard Paul has unearthed a sinister plot orchestrated by Klaus Schwab, a global villain hell-bent on destroying the world economy. With stunning evidence in hand, Paul reveals how Schwab plans to blackmail the leaders of nuclear power nations using sex scandals and threats of terrorist violence. This article delves into the details of Paul's investigation, shedding light on the rise of Maverick Man, Sir Richard the Super Knight. Unveiling the mastermind, Klaus Schwab, a shadowy figure with immense power and influence, has long operated under the radar, manipulating world events for his personal gain. However, Richard Paul's relentless pursuit of the truth has finally exposed Schwab's malevolent intentions. As a respected journalist, Paul's credibility and extensive network have allowed him to gather evidence that unravels Schwab's web of deceit. The diabolical plan. Schwab's plan revolves around leveraging the darkest secrets of world leaders to gain control over their decision-making processes. By orchestrating sex scandals and planting seeds of terrorist violence, Schwab aims to create an atmosphere of fear and chaos, forcing these leaders to comply with his demands. The ultimate goal? To systematically dismantle the world economy, leaving nations vulnerable to his manipulations. Uncovering the evidence. Richard Paul's investigation has unearthed a trove of incriminating evidence against Schwab. Through meticulous research, interviews, and anonymous tips, Paul has pieced together a puzzle that reveals the full extent of Schwab's evil plan. From leaked documents to testimonies from whistleblowers, the evidence paints a chilling picture of a man willing to go to any lengths to achieve his nefarious objectives. The hero emerges. Amidst the chaos, one man stands tall, Sir Richard, also known as Maverick Man Knight in shining armor. Armed with the truth, Paul's alter ego takes on the responsibility of exposing Schwab's plan to the world. Maverick Man's unwavering determination and unwavering commitment to justice become the driving force behind his quest to save the global economy and protect innocent lives. The race against time. With Schwab's plan set in motion, Maverick Man faces a race against time to stop the destruction of the world economy. As he uncovers the true extent of Schwab's influence and connections, Maverick Man must navigate a treacherous landscape filled with danger, deception, and unexpected allies. Can he expose Schwab's evil plot before it's too late? Conclusion. Journalist Richard Paul's groundbreaking investigation into Klaus Schwab's diabolical plan has shed light on a global villain's attempt to destroy the world economy. Through his alter ego, Maverick Man, Paul takes on the daunting task of thwarting Schwab's nefarious scheme. As the world holds its breath, the fate of nations hangs in the balance, waiting for the rise of a hero to save the day.
And the series continues featuring the Maverick family. And if you become a regular viewer and we become aware of you in the chat and you join the community, there's a real good chance you might end up in one of these episodes of Maverick Nights. Now, folks, that gets us to the end of today's broadcast day. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out here. Thanks to everybody who has been here watching the RFK Jr. VP running mate announcement. Thank you to Lori for co-hosting and kind of taking the lead on all of that today. Again, very, very helpful. And mostly thank you to all you guys for just watching. It's a privilege to have you all here. You could be anywhere, literally millions of other places you could be online watching just about anything else tonight. So to have you here, an absolute privilege. Thank you so much. I will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the Maverick News Channel, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.